How does Gregory Crewdson turn a single photograph into a movie? Most photographers rely on what's already there: light, location, focusing on a decisive moment, for instance. But when you want your photos to feel like cinema, when you want narrative depth and visual storytelling in a single frame, what happens if the story you need doesn't exist? That's the challenge, creating cinematic photography that tells a story without a script. Gregory Crewdson doesn't find scenes, he builds them. He lights entire streets, he directs actors like a filmmaker, and he composes every shot with the precision of a cinematographer. This is the cinematic world of Gregory Crewdson, and once you enter in it, it might change the way you see photography or some things about photography. So grab a drink, make yourself comfortable, and let's go straight to another video. Gregory Crewdson wouldn't be your typical photographer. He doesn't necessarily walk around with a camera slung over his shoulder like you and me likely would, but rather he builds the world he wants to photograph, meticulously and obsessively, if you ask me. With full film crews at his disposition, cranes, fog machines, production designers, and weeks of careful planning, it all leads to creating a single frame. To me, it's as if Edward Hopper and David Lynch collaborated to create a photo series, and it would look something like this: suspenseful, eerie, mysterious, and ambiguous. It's almost as if each image is a still from the middle of a story, something that almost lingers around, but it's never fully resolved or revealed. Therefore, it's safe to say that Crewdson is a photographer who stages an emotionally charged reality. And he described his world, the themes and the scenes that we see in it, as a blend between cinema, between psychology, and also between his own memories of growing up in a small American town. And he's spoken about his deep connection to filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock and David Lynch, and he once said, quote, "I'm interested in the moments that are frozen on the verge of something. There's a kind of fear or loneliness that I find endlessly compelling." And that's why I would describe his process, his creative process, as more akin to a filmmaker than actually a photographer. And we can see that in the documentary I've been featuring throughout this video and will be continuing featuring, that is called Brief Encounters from 2012. And I'm sure one of the questions this opens in most people's minds would be, why go to such extremes for one photograph? Why build an entire set, light a whole neighborhood, and rehearse actors just for a single frame? And I guess to answer that, we need to gain a deeper understanding over how Crewdson constructs his scenes and how his obsessive process changes the way we might think about what a photograph can be. And I wanted to talk more specifically in this part of the video on the use of cinematic language to create these worlds and really get a deeper understanding over what Gregory's photography is all about. And I'll start by talking about the planning and collaboration that goes into his work. Rather than shooting spontaneously, Crewdson begins with an idea, feeling, or mood that he wants to explore. Though he rarely writes formal scripts for his images, he works through extensive sketches and storyboarding to clarify his vision. And after this comes location scouting. He searches for real houses and neighborhoods that fit the atmosphere that he imagined. These locations are then rented for extended periods, sometimes weeks, allowing time then to transform them. Rearranging furniture, for instance, repainting walls, replacing curtains in order to create this sense of heightened reality. And this quote-unquote hyperrealism results in settings that look like everyday houses and everyday sceneries, and that are believable on the surface, but are charged with this uncanny stillness and tension underneath the surface. The photographer then engages in work with a large team that includes lighting experts, set designers, art directors, producers, and even camera operators. This crew helps him meticulously control every visual element, so his role feels akin to that of a maestro in an orchestra. And I'd like to quote something that he said that I find quite interesting. He said, quote, "I want to be able to orchestrate every detail to create a world that feels both familiar and strange." And after this, I'd like to make a note about lighting in Gregory Crewdson's work and what we can learn from it. Lighting is arguably one of the most important tools in a photographer's process. And Crewdson uses light to generate mood, suggest a narrative, and also, of course, evoke emotion. His lighting setups often involve powerful movie lights, balloon lights, and/or diffused panels designed to mimic natural or artificial light sources, but they are controlled quite precisely. For example, he uses a soft fill light to create subtle, even illumination that suggests calm or introspection, and with it, it reduces harsh shadows and gives scenes a gentle, quiet tone. He also controls light, especially in night scenes, to create dramatic shadows, using therefore intense backlighting or side lighting to generate strong contrasts and silhouettes. This technique also helps in bringing ambiguity and mystery to his images. And lastly, I think it's also worth mentioning what I'd like to call window light, which functions as a natural source that can frame a subject or cast long shadows, suggesting confinement or longing across the composition. It's also worth mentioning the photographer's main visual influences, people like David Lynch, who is commonly mentioned because both artists create images of suburbia that feels familiar yet unsettling. Lynch's films often depict still, static environments loaded with this intense sense of dread and mystery, a quality that is also reflected in Crewdson's carefully staged neighborhoods. And on a brief note, if this interests you, this connection of Crewdson and David Lynch, and also David Lynch, how he's able to create that eerie kind of feeling in the familiar, I've made a whole video on my second channel explaining that and touching on that, that is titled, I believe, that why David Lynch's movies are all so strange. So you're welcome to watch that if you want, but now let's go back to Gregory Crewdson. And lastly, two other elements that I'd like to touch on when talking about this idea of the use of cinematic language is the directing of subjects and the importance of slowness and intention. Subjects in Crewdson's scenes are really actors. However, they don't perform in a conventional way that you'd expect an actor to do. Instead, they are positioned and directed to hold precise poses that suggest a moment frozen in time. This theatrical mood is inviting to viewers because it leads to spend time with the photo and imagine what just happened or what might come next. And lastly, I guess there is a point to be made on the importance of slow pace and intention against especially today's fast-paced world. Today's world, we creatives are encouraged to have a quick turnaround. Crewdson's methods therefore stand out because his work essentially demonstrates that a single, carefully crafted image can carry a far more compelling first impression, holding a bigger narrative weight, and be charged with more emotional complexity than many images that we might see. But now we are going to dive into my favorite part of the video, and that is, what can we take from Gregory Crewdson's work? At first glance, his work might seem totally out of reach. Huge crews, months of planning, entire towns rewired just for a single shot. But when you look past the scale, what you find is a process built on principles that any photographer can apply. In this sequence, we can talk about the importance of pre-visualization, which is actually something that we've talked about before here on the channel when we talked about Ansel Adams and when he said that you don't take a photograph, you make it. That's an idea that every photographer can apply to imagine a photograph before you take it. What do you want it to feel like? What should be in frame? And what shouldn't? In fact, he went on to say something truly important when he revealed that, quote, all the work happens before the camera is even set up. The photograph itself is just the final piece, which is very interesting. But then this touches on the idea of control. Looking at Gregory Crewdson's work lets you know that you can shape the space you're shooting in whatever way best suits your intention. The smallest decisions, the placement of a lamp, the choice of clothing, the way the subject sits, all of these had meaning And when you start thinking about photography as a constructed image, not just a capture off the cuff one, your whole perspective can indeed change. Another lesson comes from the focus on narrative. Looking at his images, it's like something's just happened or something's about to happen. And that's actually an idea that photographers can learn from his work by asking ourselves the following questions. What story does this frame suggest? Where is the tension? Can the power be in what you leave out or in what you suggest rather than just show it? And finally, let's talk atmosphere. For the photographer, light isn't just functional, it's emotional. He uses it to create ambiguity, isolation, this sense of wonder. And while you might not have big studio lights or a fog machine, but you can still think about how light feels in your image. Is it soft or harsh, directional or diffuse? Where is light coming from and what does it create or bring to your image? And if you're someone who, like me, enjoys this type of cinematic photography where you not only have very composed, carefully composed frames, but you also have this treatment of light as something very dramatic and a lot of low light as well, and you have this painterly texture, then I'd say that you might enjoy as well discovering how you can achieve that through different ways. And one of the ways I've achieved this throughout this whole video, not even just like the scenarios that I've presented to you so far, but also in all the details of the books and all the movement and all the kind of shallow depth of field that I've achieved. And that was through using Shurei's Vision Prime full frame cine lenses. These lenses are built for visual storytelling and they give you that beautiful horizontal flare, shallow depth of field, and cinematic aspect ratio that transforms your footage into something truly filmic. In my experiences, I've gotten this almost painterly bokeh and dramatic compression of space. These lenses come in multiple focal lengths, such as 24, 35, and 50mm, all with the consistent 1.4 apertures, which makes them perfect for low-light scenarios like this studio that I'm filming this right now, and my low-budget Crewdson-like scenarios. All these lenses have also presented, in my experience, a kind of controlled distortion which avoids too much post-production work, which definitely helped me being more efficient in the overall shooting and post-shooting workflow. And despite being quite high-end glass, they're lightweight and compact, so whether you're shooting digital stills or video like I was, or for instance building cinematic photo projects like Gregory Crewdson, the Shurei Vision series is a great set of lenses to help you build those bigger and more immersive stories. So links to these lenses will be down below, but now let's dive back into the video and see perhaps my last thoughts on what we can learn from Gregory Crewdson and, what definitely we can take from him. So hopefully this was helpful in any way, shape, or form. I think that is always a best approach to keep your mind open and to look at someone like Gregory Crewdson and think, okay, where's the light coming from? Where's the tension? How does he create this? How does he bring into an image? And take lessons on that level rather than closing it off as unattainable because we don't have or share the same resources. Hopefully as well by my silly small examples I was able to showcase that today as well. At the end of the day, one of the biggest lessons that I also want to, well, not lessons, I don't want to kind of entail that I'm this very knowledgeable individual. I'm just trying to say, hopefully one of the biggest things that come across in this video is that you get confident into your ability as a photographer and forget about maybe you might not have as many resources as someone else has, but you can still have other things. You can bring other things to the table, vision, ideas, creativity, and those things are free. Those things are things that you can actually work on and develop over time. You don't have to apply money or actually physically buy it. It would be fun if you could buy it, but I don't think it would be also ethical. But anyways, I'd like to thank so much Shurei for as well sending me these awesome lenses. I had a lot of fun actually doing this and having a more practical approach during this video as well. I really enjoy it, and maybe I'll do that in the future with other videos. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. And thank you so much for watching. Links to them will be down below, as well as links to all the other stuff, other videos, my social media, etc. Thank you so much for watching. I'm extremely grateful for my position, for being able to make videos and having people watching them. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, keep shooting, keep creating, keep learning photography, and I'm out.